How much work did go into that period, Dave? Because it was a test. Some of the weather was unbelievable at that time.
Yes, it was. Well, sort of post Christmas we were okay, and then we went into that cold snap, and then I think sort of after Exeter at home, we went downhill rapidly after that, pitch quality wise. Sometimes you get a situation where you really want to water the pitch pre-match, but the temperatures don't allow you to, otherwise you just kind of end up with an ice rink, so you can't really take the risk. You know, temperatures are at sort of freezing point at, you know, kick-off time on a Saturday afternoon, so that's no good there, and it's not really much good on for a Tuesday night either, so you just have to sort of let it go, and then you see the lack of water and the more friction between the boot and the pitch and the contact sort of rips it up a bit more, you see. So yeah, it was to monitor and look at every game by game, and then you know, you're just sort of hanging on by your fingernails by the end.
I know postponements, you take it personally. What's it like when you've lost a game to the weather?
Well, yeah, disappointed. I mean, if there was a godsend this time, it was because there was no fans to sort of rearrange their lives. That missed a Tuesday, and then the following, when it was rearranged, that they couldn't come. Perhaps I don't really like that. But the bottom line with that was that you knew there was going to be another Tuesday night somewhere, and then that made it even worse. Everything was all just concertinaed together. But you know, and there was going to be no extension at the end, and we were where we were. We were into February, and there was going to be no movement. And you know, with the 5 or 6 games off with COVID, it was just going to. It was inevitably going to turn into what it turned into, you know, Saturday, Tuesday. I'm
thinking of one of the Leyton Orient postponements in particular. We were so close to getting it on. That just shows how the weather can pull the rug.
Yeah, that's right, Andy. We had, we were here on that Monday, weren't we? And everything was fine. All the sheets were on, and we're all sort of gone home happy. And then we walk in on the Tuesday morning, and we've got -8. And then all hell breaks loose, kind of thing, you know. So that's what we're up against, really. You know, we're not in control of that, are we, really? So we can take measures to try and help that, but you know, ultimately there's times when we can't win. But yeah, and the others as well, you know, those were a bit more easy to call, because that was sort of long-term cold spells. You know, I think you and I could have called those off at you know, maybe 3 or 4 days before, but such are the regulations. We have to keep trying. But yeah, it is what it is, and disappointing the way things ended up. Everything, you know, from top of the league to not top of the league to you know, I'm trying to salvage a pitch for every home game to just try and make it as best as we can.
With us having trialled that fleece in the very recent past, it's bound to throw up the question: should we have the fleece? Should that be used again? What are your thoughts on that one, Dave?
The fleece is okay, but practically to store it, to move it, to manhandle it is a nightmare. You know what it's like, Andy. We've had, you know, members of staff come out and help. It's the damn stuff's that heavy. I understood that there was you know, the people that know about it, the people that manufacture it, were going to be looking at what they could perhaps do with it, in terms of putting it a bit like a sleeping bag inside a perhaps a waterproof cover. But of course that all adds to the weight, which means that the size of each individual sheet probably has to be smaller, which creates, you know, the storage area is going to be bigger. But in terms of the insulation, yeah, good. It is a difficult one. We are looking at you know, different kind of sheets, but the only difference is density. The density of the sheet, which allegedly or potentially can keep out, you know, another degree of frost for one more night. But I still maintain an inch of grass cover is as good as anything. And then that throws up everything that we've just talked about in terms of having fixtures, I don't know, once every 10 days, where, you know, you can do your maintenance, you keep your grass. We perhaps have a slightly milder winter, but if we do have to have the sheets, then we can cope. Yeah, it's all still in the melting pot, really. But the fleece is I mean, even in those real bad winters of 2010, 2011, 2012 perhaps, You know, we were down at -8 and it was still getting nailed. Even it was getting nailed. You know, the only advantage would be that you'd lay it out, and even if it was rock hard underneath, it actually did prevent the maximum sort of penetration, if you see what I mean. I think way back in those winters, even using the fleece, when it had been rock hard, and then we start to thaw out. I think we played Huddersfield, and was it the game when Lee Miller scored late on? Just thought I'd put that in. The pitch was still frozen about 5 inches down in one of those winters, so that's the kind of penetration you get. I mean, you know, we're made out of 80% sand, this pitch, so sand is notoriously cold anyway, and not a good conductor of heat. But then you kind of think, well, it won't conduct cold. I don't know. I should have stuck in at my physics, but. You see what I mean? It's really cold to warm up in the spring, really longer to warm up in the spring versus what you would call soil. But yeah, all those factors. But again, and I keep going back to it, an inch of grass cover, lie the sheet on the top of that, and then that is your insulation there. We've done that in the past. It's worked okay. You know, and we're living in a world where, you know, referees not in the good old days when Brian Talbot was manager of Oxford and he was complaining about like a square yard of hard ground in the Warwick Road goal area, not actually in the middle of the goal either, and he was sort of saying, with his shiny shoes slipping all over it, that it should be called off. But you know, so we're not kind of in that era anymore where, you know, that would be off now perhaps. Whereas, you know, even just 15 years ago we'd be getting on with it. So you can't even afford a little area on the pitch that's a little bit, you know, a little bit dodgy perhaps.
So just to clarify for the fans, going back to that January period, the big areas of that pitch, particularly Warwick Road End, were bare. There was no grass cover. If it had that inch of grass cover, with the covers that we've got, what sort of temperatures would it have looked after so that we could have got the games on? Yeah,
the ones we've got would be... it's difficult. It really is difficult to say, because every night's frost is potentially slightly different, and there's so much localised. I treat this as rural because it's open. You know, if you live in the countryside, it's colder than it is in the city, kind of thing. But there's so much draft around this place. It works in peculiar ways. But if we'd had, you could do 3 nights of -4. Yeah, and the sun comes out during the day, and where there's no shade, the sun gets on the sheet. The sheet is black, so it absorbs a bit more heat than something else, and you can keep that bit sort of comfortable. It's the other bit that needs attention. I mean, I've put 2 and 3 and 4 sheets on in places sometimes when it's been really cold, and it doesn't make any difference. So it's peculiar the way it works, really. But would have been. Again, you know, you saw that goal mouth totally devoid of grass cover, and it's just straight in. But, you know, the sheet touches the sand, and once you've got that contact, there's no air gap in between, so it just nails it. You know.
That would be the same with the fleece, wouldn't it?
Well, the fleece is the gap, because it's even if it was only 10 mil thick, 15 mils thick. The cotton, or the first stuff we got was the cotton wool kind of stuff. The thickness was the gap. So it worked, but of course, you know, we'd roll that up with a bit of frost on the top, and then it wouldn't come apart because it actually kept the cold in like a flask. So it would keep the cold in. We're still battling with it.